13 full-time employees, and we basically help businesses grow with digital marketing strategies. So today we are going to talk about, I'm going to go over a couple of terms that we need to understand, then we'll dive into the pixel and what that's all about. And then we'll go into some KPIs and measuring the results from your ads. And then we'll talk about ongoing ad management. And then lastly, we'll get into how to diagnose some problems. Today, we do have quite a few slides to go over. So we're going to try to go through these kind of rapid fire. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we will try to answer them. If we don't get right to them, we'll try to kind of save them for the end, but feel free to just put them in the chat anyway. All right, so terms that you should know. First, we're going to talk about objective. So the objective, having an objective is really about, well, this first slide here, I'm going to go back to traffic. So for traffic, traffic is basically bringing people to your website, wherever they're coming from, you're sending people to a website. And that can be from ads, it can be from really anything. So engagement, what does engagement mean? So engagement means basically getting people to engage with your post, whether it's liking it, sharing it, commenting on it. You can see this post right here. We have an example. It has 51 comments, 50 shares, and 308 reactions to it. So that's all about engagement. Reach. Reach is really just getting out there and reaching your target audience. It's one of the least expensive ways to have your ads on Facebook or Instagram, but basically you just want to make sure that everyone sees you. Messages. This is yours, Brad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. No worries. So basically, just kind of hearkening back to trying to figure out what your overall objective is and why you're doing the ads, why you're spending money on the ads in the first place. Every business is a little bit different in how it creates value, right? So messages is another objective that you can choose. So if you're somebody that you're trying to generate inbound leads or you're trying to generate inbound messages, you would post an ad that actually has this send a message button, and that would sort of generate those actions that you're actually looking for. Lead generation is another completely different objective. And by the way, the term objective is kind of thrown around sometimes, like, what are you really trying to accomplish? But it's pretty important that you understand with Facebook ads what your objective is, because before you run an ad, they make you choose what your objective is. Like, what are you ultimately trying to do? So if you're trying to generate leads like inbound form submissions, then you would choose the lead generation objective. And that can be, form submissions for a lot of different purposes. So maybe you're trying to increase the number of email addresses in your list. You want to have access to people to be able to send out email blasts to them. So you would generate a lead through one of your lead generation ads in Facebook, and they would be signing up for that list. Or maybe you're trying to generate leads to you're an auto dealership and you're trying to generate leads. You want inbound people that want to buy cars, or you're an educational institution and you want leads from parents or students that are looking to potentially come to your educational institution. So you're asking them to fill out a form. The form happens right in Facebook. So it's a very seamless process, and then it can be emailed to you directly. And then the final sort of objective that we'll go over is what's called the conversion objective. And conversion can mean a lot of different things. So for some people, like let's say Lee builds you an e-commerce site, and you want to sell as many of your products on that site as possible. Well, you have to tell Facebook that is what you want. You have to tell Facebook using a code that Kate will get into in a second, that is what you want. You want to generate as many of these particular actions as possible. And those actions are called conversions. And so you would choose conversion as your objective and then tell Facebook what that means to you, or Instagram what that means to you. Custom audience is another term that it's important to be familiar with. So a custom audience would essentially be a group that you're targeting based on their affiliation with something or their affiliation with your business. So just as an example, let's say you run a video ad and a bunch of people watch that video, many of whom are not actually interested in your product, but some of them are. So you want to make sure that you tell Facebook, hey, anybody that watches at least 25% of this video, I want them to see more of my advertising. Those people are called a custom audience. Or let's say you run traffic to a particular page on your website. People that visit that page are in a custom audience. So that's what that term basically means. Or anybody that has engaged with one of your posts in the past can also be a custom audience. Let me just go over a real quick example. It seems like, weren't we just on slide 14 and now we're on 7? That's okay. Let me just kind of go over a quick example of how these things work. So this is an e-commerce site that we've worked with before. This is Super Potty Trainer. I think we talked about them a little bit last week. So essentially, Super Potty Trainer's key goal is to try and sell as many of these particular products as possible. Right. So here would be the way that you would set this up. The first thing that you do is you set up the conversion objective. So earlier today, we kind of talked about, okay, we want to make sure that we tell Facebook what is valuable, what is a valuable action. In this case, we want as many people as possible to proceed to step number 2 in the checkout process. So we send that information to Facebook using what's called the Facebook pixel, which isn't it seems complicated, but it's not. Somebody like Lee can install that for you in 5 seconds, right? It's this big, scary snippet of code, and but it's really no big deal. A web developer can put it on your website. And essentially the pixel communicates back to Facebook, what's actually happening on your website. Very, very important. Number 2 would be, see, this is skipping. This is skipping. That's what's happening here. There we go. For whatever reason, clicking in the slides is skipping 3 or 4 ahead, but now I think we're good. I knew that we didn't mess this presentation up, Kate. I
was feeling bad, but I was like, what did I do?
I knew that it was a technical glitch. All right. So anyway, and we'll go back to the slides that Google Slides actually skipped in a little bit. Second thing, though, that you would do in a case like this with a client like this is you determine who is your audience going to be, right? So in this case, the audience is basically men or women, doesn't matter, as long as they're in this particular age bracket and they have these particular targeting measures, right? So they're interested in childcare, child development, they're new parents. Facebook, Instagram knows everything, especially if you are outwardly doing things online that tell them things about you. Like if you're doing a lot of shopping for diapers, it knows that you're a new parent. Or if you're spending a lot of time on Carters, it knows that you're a new parent, right? So we're able to, as advertisers, to target people based on that information. So the second step would be to set that audience. Third step would be to potentially run an ad to that audience, right? So this is a video ad. And the fourth step would be to retarget people who actually watched part of that video. The reason that you would want to retarget people that watched part of a video is basically that if you watched 50% of a video, then you know that that person is probably pretty interested in your project, in your product. So it's a really good way to sort of set up that proverbial funnel, as we call it in marketing. There's a lot of different ways that you can target and retarget. You can retarget people just because they've spent more time than their average amount of time looking at your posts. So you sort of know that they're interested. You could target based on the fact that, they've commented or they've shared your post. There's a lot of ways that you can sort of break that audience down and start really getting targeted about what you're saying to them. And then the fifth, as you sort of work people through your funnel, as you sort of get them through that whole, as you get them more and more familiar with your brand and you start to build that brand equity with them, you can change your offer up. You can throw things at people if it's the fourth, fifth, sixth time that they have interacted with your ads, just to sort of, get them a little bit more interested or give them a little bit of a different look. Because what works for one person may not work very well for another person. And go ahead, Kate.
So as Brad mentioned, the Facebook pixel is a little piece of code that someone like Lee can probably install on your website while sleeping. But this is a really important step when you're working with Facebook or Instagram ads, and it's one that it's easy to miss. So if you are trying to send people to your website, and if you're trying to get whether you're trying to get people to submit a form or purchase something, you want to make sure that you have the Facebook pixel, because this little piece of code is what is tracking people's actions from Facebook to or Instagram to your website. So this helps you understand whether or not what you're doing is working or not. So
I'm not taking any chances. I'm not taking any chances anymore.
Thank you.
I'm just going to choose the slides as we go. Make sure that they go in order and they don't skip them.
That works for me. So the reason for the pixel, like I mentioned, it's you need to track your conversions. You can help optimize for your conversion. So basically, you're learning from whatever it is that you're doing. And over time, you can start to make changes, little tweaks here and there, just to make sure that things are working. And then your pixel also helps you be able to build a custom lookalike audience. So whether you want to target the custom audience, like Brad mentioned, people who might have interacted with the page or viewed some content, or if you want to create a lookalike audience, which are based on people who might have done a specific action, the pixel allows you to do that. So it's a very, very, very important step that you don't want to forget. You can get sidetracked, making your ads and launching your campaigns, but do not forget your pixel.
And just, just to kind of piggyback off of the conversation about lookalike audiences, because we don't really discuss them too much in this slideshow. And just so everybody knows, any of these slides could be an hour, any of them. Like any part of this presentation could actually be an entire week. We've been to seminars that are only about the pixel, right? And tracking conversions. So basically, I think it's important to understand that if we go too fast through things, there's a lot to this. But I want to make sure that we key in on the lookalike audiences there. So basically, in case you're not aware, what a lookalike audience does is it takes everybody that has, say, 50, the people that watched 50% of that video that we showed you a second ago. And let's say 20,000 people watched 50% of that video. So Facebook understands, Instagram understands what those 20,000 people have in common. It understands what magazines they all read. It's able to sort of reverse engineer an audience for you. And it's like, all right, well, you were just targeting all the parents. As it turns out, the 20,000 parents that actually watched your video also are interested in this, and this. And then what a lookalike audience does is it'll go out and it'll find other people that share those same commonalities, and it'll show your ad to those people too. So in that way, it allows you to easily and quickly optimize your ads for the people that are most likely to want to consume your content or want to take whatever action it is. So again, let's say we're running traffic to a sales page. We're running people to a sales page and we want them to buy a particular product. Maybe 1,000 people buy that product. And essentially you have a great piece of content for a lookalike audience, because Facebook can now go and sort of find other people who have a lot of those same characteristics as those original 1,000 people. If you have questions on lookalike audiences, I'll be more than happy to go through them, but they're kind of one of the most effective things that you can do in using Facebook ads and Instagram ads at all. All right, Kate, I'm going to flip it back to you now because that wasn't part of the plan, but I felt like it warranted more discussion.
I think it was great.
Yeah.
All right. So when you're setting up your Facebook pixel, what you're doing is you're basically probably going to go into your event manager and you are going to choose a piece of code and then you're going to send it over to your web developer. That's probably the easiest way to say it. You want to find someone like Lee or someone who's just really well versed in the back end of a website.
I don't know how to do it.
Who?
I don't know how to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, it can be difficult. It's a little it can be intimidating if you're not familiar with that. So and so you can see right here what we have is, you can set up different actions that can happen. And so when you do that, like initiate checkout, this kind of, this is telling Facebook, okay, if your goal is to initiate a checkout, you're creating your pixel so that it's tracking the right button and it knows, okay, someone's going to be filling out some specific fields. It all just ties together so that it's tracking, is this person actually initiating a checkout? And it helps you really evaluate, your forms and your website. And you can learn a ton of information just about how your customers move through your website.
Oh, hang on. There we go.
All right. So now that we're done talking about all of the code and all that fun stuff, we wanted to just talk about some KPIs and how to measure performance, because you're putting money into your ads and you want to be able to track them. And I know that a lot of times you can sit down and you run something, and then after running it for a month, you're like, okay, did that work? I don't know. So we'll give a few tips on how you can actually track your success. Alrighty, so set goals and benchmarks. This is very important. So basically, my biggest question whenever I'm starting something is, where are we at now? What are we doing? What does our performance right now look like at this current time? And I'll take like a 3-month average. Maybe it's website traffic. Maybe we want to get more leads. Maybe we want to increase our sales. We do a benchmark. And so we kind of set a timeline. So here in this example, this first one, increase average monthly website visitors by 10% within 12 months. That is a great goal. The reason it's a great goal is because I've outlined that I want more monthly website visitors. I want to increase it by 10%, and I want to be there in 12 months. So basically, if you're running your ads or whatever it is that you're doing, you can, along the way, every month or every couple of months, you can say, am I close to hitting this benchmark? And that's really how you can determine if what you're doing is successful, because you have goals and what you're doing should be trying to reach them. Here's another fun piece for anyone who likes math. I don't. So when you're one of the biggest questions we get is, how do we set a budget? How do we know how much money it's going to take to actually see some type of return? So in this example, we're using a lawyer just because it's actually a great example. So a lawyer comes to us and maybe he wants 5 new clients per month. So if we know that, okay, we're going to write down that is our goal, 5 new clients per month. If we are looking at maybe this lawyer, his typical conversion rate after a consultation, maybe he hosts a free consultation. In the real world, it's probably more like 50% close rate. But for Facebook, we're going to lower that. We're going to put that more at like 10%. So anytime this lawyer gets a consult, we'll expect to maybe convert 10% of those into a new client. So if we know that, basically, if we want to get 5 new clients, that means that we need to try to generate 50 consults for that lawyer. And how are we going to do that? So through a lot of data, and for this industry specifically, if we don't have a hook or a fun offer, a download or anything, if we just have like our generic free consultation, we can guess that the average cost for that lead is going to be around $50 to $100 just on average. So knowing that all of just those pieces of information that helps us understand, okay, if we need to get 50 consults, let's say that, our average ad spend is going to have to be at least $2,500 to maybe 5,000. And we can kind of work backwards from there. So those are just, those are some kind of easy numbers. This is a great example of how to try to set what that budget might be. And you can kind of work backwards from clicks or audience size. So it just really helps you kind of set realistic expectations. If you're going to, put $10 a month towards something, you're probably not going to get your 5 clients.
Yeah, it's so true. I had a client actually ask me a couple of days ago, how many impressions, they were trying to do their goals for 2021. And they said, how many impressions do we need to generate in order to gain a new member, right? It's a membership organization. It's really impossible to know the answer to that unless you know all these other pieces of information. Sort of like, okay, well, where do members come from? Well, they have to visit once. Okay, well, so how many visitors does it take to get a member? You got to figure that number out. And then you got to figure out how many real conversations does it take to get a visitor? And then you got to figure out how many leads does it take to have a real conversation? And then you can figure out, okay, now how many clicks does it take to get a lead? And then how many impressions does it take to get a click? Then you can start backing into those goals. But you really got to start off with what you ultimately want to accomplish and then sort of work backwards into it. And then you can figure out how much should I actually spend in order to make that happen. All right. So here's some basic metrics that everybody sort of needs to understand in terms of, if you're going to be getting into running ads and you're going to be getting into spending money, these are the things that you want to be completely familiar with. And I don't think this is just in terms of Facebook ads. I think that if you're in marketing, a lot of these terms, probably CPM, things like that, look very, very familiar to you, right? So number one is reach. This is quite simply the number of people that you're reaching. And that could be, and that's entirely dependent on your audience and entirely dependent on how big your budget is. So if you've got a really tiny audience and a huge budget, then you're probably going to reach all of them more times, right? So you're going to end up with a higher frequency. And that speaks to your impressions. So reach is the number of people. The impressions is the number of times that your ad has been served to those people. So if there's 30 people on the call today, and I want a frequency of 3, then that means that I need 90 impressions total. CPM is just how much it costs to reach 1,000 people, CPM is how much it costs to get 1,000 impressions. Link clicks is if we run a Facebook ad, how many times does the link get clicked? And that link can be a lot of different things. There can be a little link at the bottom of the ad that says learn more. There could be a link in the ad copy. There could be a phone number actually now. You can run a traffic ad to a phone number, and Facebook will count that also as a link click. CTR is click-through rate. So click-through rate is essentially how many times is your ad shown versus how many times is it clicked. Now, click-through rate is going to vary. It's going to be different depending on what industry you're in. It's going to vary depending on what type of ad you're showing. But in general, the higher the click-through rate, the better your ad. Or more well put, the higher the click-through rate, the better your ad, and the better your ad is speaking to your audience. You could have an amazing ad, but if you're running it to the wrong audience, then it's not going to have a high click-through rate. And it's not because it's a bad ad, it's because your targeting is wrong, right? So you could be targeting the super potty trainer to a bunch of people that don't have kids, and now it's a great ad, but the strategy is off, right? So higher the click-through rate, the better everything else is working. CPC, that refers to link clicks. That's cost per click. In general, the lower the cost per click, the better, but that's not always the whole story. Sometimes as you whittle an audience down, you're going to pay a higher cost per click, but you're going to get more conversions out of those people because they're of higher quality. Facebook knows that there are people out there that click on every single link they see. So if you tell Facebook, we just want cheap link clicks, they'll get them for you. You'll get cheap link clicks, but you won't sell anything because those people don't necessarily buy things. They just click everything. So it's really, really cheap. But that doesn't necessarily help you accomplish your objective. Landing page views, it seems like it should be the same as link clicks, but it's not, because if you click a link in Facebook and then it takes 5 seconds, 6, 7, 8, 10 seconds for that page to load, people bounce. They don't actually wait for the page to load. So landing page views refers to how many people have actually seen the page. And it's usually going to be a lower number than the link clicks. CPA is cost per acquisition. How much does it actually cost you to get a new customer? In order to be able to calculate that, in order for Facebook to be able to calculate that, you have to be feeding back to it when you do get a new customer. That way it knows, like, okay, this account has spent $200 and a new customer has now been logged, probably electronically using the Pixel. So it knows that your cost per acquisition is $200. CPL would be cost per lead. That's a little easier to track. Facebook knows when you get a lead. And CP message, that's like my own metric, and I can't call it CPM. So I call it CP message. It's cost per message. Because if you're looking for messages as opposed to inbound leads, then you'd want to know how much that's costing you as well. And then ROAS, which is short for return on ad spend. So you need to know how much you're making. If you spend $1,000, it's really important to have some metric, some measure of, okay, how much did we make back on that? So those are some metrics that you can actually be calculating within Facebook. Or I keep saying only Facebook, but it's Facebook and Instagram, but the whole thing is built in the Facebook Ads Manager. Here are some other metrics that are really important to understand if you're evaluating the success of your campaigns. Number one is your average customer lifetime value. So you may take a look at your Facebook ads and go, geez, I spent $1,000 last month and I only got 3 new customers. And that might seem like a lot. Other people might say your cost per acquisition is crazy. It's off the chart. But you really have to compare that to what your average lifetime value of a customer is. Because if your average lifetime value of a customer is $3,000 and it's costing you $300 to generate one, then maybe that's not such a bad idea. Maybe you're making 10%, maybe you're making 10x on your investment and you should increase your spend, right? So you need to really understand average customer lifetime value to be able to evaluate how successful your campaigns actually are. Average closing rate. So I need to know how many leads I have to generate in order to sell whatever my product is, or how many customers I have to generate into my store in order to generate a sale. You really kind of need to know that so that you can evaluate, all right, well, if that's the case, then how many leads do I have to generate in order to get a customer, and how much do I have to pay for those leads? In relation to all of this, I think it's important to understand what you make on all of your other advertising sources. So we'll go back to the prior example where we say customer lifetime value is $3,000 and it's costing you $300 in Facebook ad spend to get to that 3,000, right? Well, is that good or bad? We don't know. We don't know if that's high or low because we don't know how much it costs to generate that same customer with other ad sources. So you kind of need to know that, because $300 might seem like a lot unless it costs you $600 by running TV ads, or it might seem really cheap unless we say, well, yeah, but it only costs $100 on Google ads to generate a customer. So is it really good to spend $300 on Facebook? We don't know. It's impossible to know the answer to that question unless you can actually compare it to your other ad sources. What we see often is that business owners sometimes hold their digital advertising initiatives and expenditures to sort of a higher standard than what they hold their other advertising to. So it'll be, I want to generate customers at $100 a piece on Facebook ads. And it's like, okay, maybe we can do that. But what does it cost you to generate a customer on radio ads? Well, I'm not sure. Well, that's not really a fair way to go about it. That's not really the right way to go about it. I think you got to know what it costs you to generate a customer overall. So these are just really important metrics to understand. And then your average response time. If a lead comes into you, or if a message comes into you, that could be a perfectly legitimate, hot, ready to go buyer. If you take 3 days to get back to that person, you might as well not have spent the money. They're not coming in. You're not getting them because they've already moved on to something else. And this is truer in social media ads than in any other ad source, because with social media ads, it's very in the moment. They're scrolling through Facebook, scrolling through Instagram. You got a good ad, it stops the thumb, they respond to it, and then they're kind of on to the next thing. That's why, like earlier when Kate was illustrating the lawyer example, your average closing rate might be 50%, but in social media ads, it's going to be lower for the most part, because you're getting a different type of buyer, you're getting a different type of lead. So you want to try and keep your average response time as low as you possibly can. It just gives you the best chance of actually being able to sell that person or bring them in or whatever you're ultimately trying to do. Here's just some industry averages, right? Because a lot of times people say, okay, well, what is a good click-through rate, right? If I'm sending people to a landing page, what should I be converting them at? And if I'm not converting them there, then what's the problem? So these are just some basic benchmarks that you can kind of use as a basic understanding. So if your click-through rate on Facebook ads is 1% or more, we would consider that to be a pretty good click. It's like 1% is the average, right? So if your click-through rate is 2%, it's pretty good. 3%, very, very good. And this only, by the way, and we'll share this with everybody after the call, but this only refers to Facebook and social media ads, by the way. These numbers are completely different if you're looking at a different source. So for instance, if you're looking at Google ads, and we'll talk about Google ads next week, 1% is not a good click-through rate at all. It's terrible. It's a third of the average, right? But the difference is in the intent. On a Google ad, somebody's actually searching for you. They're searching for your product, or they're searching for your service. They're searching for an answer to their problem. And so you should be able to get a higher than 3% click-through rate if your advertising is good. On social media, they're not searching for you. They're just going about their day. And now here you are serving them up with an ad for a potty training tool or whatever, so you're sort of disrupting what they're doing. So you're going to have a lower click-through rate. All right. I'm not going to run down the whole list just because we're not going to. So running the ads, creating the ads, doing a good job of choosing an objective and so on and so forth, that is all well and good. But there's also a technique to actually managing the ads. These are not things that you post something and then you forget about them and then you expect that they're just going to generate returns for you over and over and over again. It's really an active management process anytime you're running an ad for a lot of different reasons. First of all, you're going to have people to comment on your post. Some of those comments are going to be good. Some of them are going to be neutral. Some of them aren't going to be good. Regardless, you have to be watching, because if they're good, then you want to communicate with that person for a few reasons. Number one, you want to make sure that you have an opportunity to bring that customer in. If you're trying to sell a product, or you're bringing them into your store, or you're trying to book a call or a consultation, you want to be sure to get that conversation going. That's where a lot of the opportunity comes from. Number two, the more engagement Facebook sees on one of your ads, the more likely it is that you're going to have that ad shown to more people at a lower cost per impression. Facebook is all about making sure that its users have a good experience. So if Facebook sees a lot of reactions, a lot of comments, a lot of interaction on a post, it's going to basically reward the advertiser with more inexpensive impressions, because it knows that you're providing a good experience for the user base. So you definitely want to be actively managing your ads. And, quite frankly, there's a lot of ways to do it, but one of the ways that I like to always do it is to take people off of the ad itself and into a messenger conversation, so that it's not actually happening on the post, but it's happening in the messenger. That way, you might be able to gain some contact information and reach out to that person. Again, it's very business specific. A lot of it depends on what actual industry you're in. But in most cases, I really like to say, thank you so much. We'll send you a private message, and then that's where that comes. Kate, are there any questions in the chat?
Andy Goodell had a question before about the number of the ideal number of people to reach with marketing. So we have approximately 6,000 guests to our attraction each year. Is there an ideal number of how many people are reached by our marketing?
So you currently have 6,000. Andy, if you want to unmute yourself, if you are muted, I can't see you on my screen right now, but hang on, let's see if I can find you. So, but I'd love to answer that question. It's a great question. Is Andy still on the call? Okay. So I'm not exactly sure if Andy is, who Andy is on the call, because I don't see Andy's name on the call. I would need more clarification to be able to actually answer that question.
See Andy on the call, but he's with the Gundalo company, if that helps you out.
Is the Gundalo company still on the call?
No, doesn't appear to be.
Okay. All right. So it's really hard for me to answer that question. Kate, do you, because I don't quite understand it. Can you read it again, Kate?
Yes. We have approximately 6,000 guests to our attraction each year. Is there an ideal number of how many people are reached by our marketing?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So
holes in the information we would need.
Well, right. Okay. So if I got 6,000 people that come to our attraction each year, then the first question that I have is, how many do you want? So if you have 6,000, but you have the capacity for 10,000, then you need to get 4,000 more people in order to make this, a success. So, so you would start from that. I'd say I want 4,000 more people. Okay. Are there 4,000 people for you to get? Is there a big enough market? Are there enough people who could consume this experience to get you another 4,000 people? You might be in a city or a state or whatever where there just doesn't exist. But assuming that there's 4,000, then you'd need to go, okay, what's my current method of bringing those people in? How do those people come in currently? And what do we currently do to advertise to get those people in the door? And then you would start running some tests. You would need to basically, I would say, create 5, 6, 7 different ads, determine who your audience is, maybe 5, 6, 7 different offers, and figure out which one is the most valuable. Run a test, see how long it takes you to get 500 new customers, figure out how many people you had to reach in order to get those 500, and then do that 8 more times. Right? Because you're trying to get to 4,000. I think my math is right. But it's not really possible to answer that question, because if I reach 10 million people with a weak offer that they don't care about, then I still may not get to my 4,000. But if I reach 1 million with a great offer, then I may have, a line out the door to get to my attraction. So a lot of those things are not so much about the number of people reached, but more the exact people that you reach, the quality of the offer. And, there's a lot of different variables, but we always recommend testing a number of different things. Anything else in there, Kate?
Renee had the same exact question. It was about the same. So hopefully that was answered. And then Margie says, does Facebook still place limits on the percent of ad that can be taxed? And are there templates you can use to stay within this instead of trial and error?
So it's kind of funny, like Facebook never said that you can't have a certain amount of text. They just, or I think they did, but then they quickly got away from that. What ended up happening is they just started charging you a lot more money and not actually showing your ad to anybody. So even though it might have been approved, you would get almost no delivery, or you'd get delivery, but you'd have to spend a lot of money if like maybe 50, 60, 70% of your ad was covered in text. There are really good tools. Like if you just Google the words Facebook text overlay tool, the first thing that'll come up is that text overlay tool, or you can upload an image and it'll basically tell you how much text is actually covering this and what the percentage is, and whether or not the ad is going to run normally or whether it's going to be curtailed because of too much text. But yeah, I mean, in general, the less text, the better. You know, Facebook just doesn't like you having a lot of text. And also in general, video, it seems to me the most, you know, the most advantageous way to run ads. Or also they're doing a lot with like carousels now where you can run multiple ads. I just saw another one pop up. Kate, is there something else?
So Renee, I find that short video ads on Facebook and Instagram give me the best click-through rate. I own a downtown Portsmouth, New Hampshire escape room, but creating an ad in the new Facebook suite makes it very difficult to post a GIF. I used to have no issues until they changed everything to business suite. Any hints or tips for GIFs?
Actually, Renee, I'm not Kate. I'm thinking this is an Angela question. Angela on our team is really the mastermind behind a lot of this stuff, as far as videos and what is, you know, what's going to work, what isn't going to work. Let us have, if you don't mind, let us have Angela reach out to you directly, because she probably does have that covered. She's probably run into that already and would probably be able to provide you with like a much better answer to that particular question. She gets all up in the video stuff and in the GIF stuff, and that's right up her alley.
She should do a workshop too.
You know, believe me, we've tried.
We like GIFs.
We love Angela, and you know, but she I'll tell you right now, she's nowhere near as boisterous and obnoxious as I am, but she is definitely like far more intelligent. So, and brilliant. We love her. So yeah, she's the right one to answer that question for you, Renee. We'll have her reach out to you after this. Thanks for that question. That's good. That's the other thing that makes this really hard, is that Facebook's always changing everything. You think you have it all figured out and then you don't. So, any other questions in there, Kate?
Nope. Okay.
So a couple more that I want to get to, that are very, very important. This is a very, very important one. So I don't know that I stressed this enough, but the comments on your post, I want to come back here, right? The comments on your post, the sentiment of the comments on a post that you're running are the most valuable piece of the post. So it's better, it's more important than the offer. It's more important than the video or the picture or the whatever. The comments are everything. It's the social proof. It's the fact that the customer who sees your ad, they know you're trying to sell them, but they're immediately going to go look at the comments and see what other people are saying. And even if the comment doesn't seem like it's that derogatory, if it affects people's sentiment about your product, then it can be bad. It can be bad for you. So just know that going in, that the comments are everything. So what can you do about that? Number one, if you have customers that you know are happy customers, don't hesitate to send them the ad first. You know, take the link and send it to them and say, hey, you know, feel free to leave a comment on this ad if you'd like to. And they probably will. And that will exponentially increase the success of your advertising if somebody else is commenting on it. You know, we want to make sure that we're not wasting our time on things, or that we're not wasting our money on things. So if I read comments and they're all good, and if it's a bad one, it's a response from the owner, then that's gonna pay you back in spades. And it's honestly the thing that I think people miss a lot of times, is they think about all the other stuff. They forget about what people actually are going to read, which are the comments and the testimonials. So how do you deal with negative comments? So here's an example of a client. You they do kitchen remodeling, and they put up a picture where, the old photo, a lot of people feel like the old photo was better than the new one. I'll keep my opinion to myself because my opinion doesn't matter, but, and people said it, this kind of stuff happens all the time. So here's the thing, right? If I'm looking at this and I happen to like that gray cabinet situation going on there, I like it a lot. And then I read the comments and they're all like, I like the old one better. I like the old one. I like the old one. Then even though I like the new one, I'm probably going to be less likely to pick up the phone and call this company because I've sort of been shamed by the way that I feel about the way that I feel based on what is here. So as a business owner, what do you do about that? There's a lot of different ways that you can handle it. First of all, if the sentiment is this bad and there's no positive sentiment, then you should probably just get rid of the post for a few reasons. It's not helping you. First of all, I don't think that this is helping anybody. Second of all, the person that did this is somebody's kitchen. The person that did this, if they see these comments, they're going to have some complaints. And I don't think that you want to be the business owner that's dealing with that. You can respond to these things and say, yeah, everybody has a difference of opinion, yada, yada, yada. We can do whatever you want. But at the end of the day, you want the sentiment to be good. Otherwise, the post isn't going to go very far. It's probably not going to help you generate that much. Now, if somebody gets belligerent, you can also ban them from your page and delete their comment. And we have definitely done this before. Business owners have different ways of going about this. Some people don't like the idea of banning somebody or whatever the case is. But at the end of the day, the way I look at it is you're the one paying the money to be running this ad. If somebody wants to air out their grievances or their dirty laundry or whatever, you can let them do it on your page and you can respond, or you can get rid of them and respond anyways. But I don't believe that your ad should be a place for somebody to just kind of rant. If they have a legitimate gripe, then you have to respond to it. But sometimes people are just going to troll your posts, and I think you got to get rid of them. But that's up to the business owner. All right. Here's an example of how it's done. Okay. This is an example of how it's actually done. So this is a client of ours, Precision Application Spray Foam Insulation, right? He's got this video. I think I showed it last week. This is a very, very engaging video that people love, right? So I asked this client, I said, what do people want from you? When they call you, what do they want from you? He's like, they want to know pricing. It's like, okay, let's do this. Let's publish the pricing. Let's give people what they want. Give them the ability to download this pricing sheet, make it part of an engaging ad, and just give them the pricing. He's like, I'm good with that, right? He's not trying to hide anything. So we did. And you would never believe it, but people are downloading this pricing sheet like crazy, providing their email address, receiving the pricing sheet. Now they have the information. What it's also doing is it's giving people an opportunity to comment and saying, I want an estimate. Can this work in a crawl space? I want a quote. I'm interested, whatever it is. And you've got to respond right away. Send them a private message, respond, get a phone number, call the person up. That's how it should be done. Now, many times these kinds of comments just sort of go by the wayside or they don't get responded to, but that's really the way to take comments and engagement and turn it into money in your bank account or leads in your CRM or whatever your ultimate goal is. For most of us, money in the bank account is the ultimate goal, but how it gets there is usually the question. Okay, so I think we're going to be out of time to talk about how we diagnose problems. We only have a couple of minutes left, and we could do a whole presentation on just how to look at ads that aren't performing and dealing with that. I don't know that we're going to have a whole lot of time to do it now. It's going to be rushed. But what I will say is just go back to whatever your original objective was and make sure that your sentiment about whether or not the ad is working is actually in agreement with what your original objective was. In other words, if you're trying to sell product, but you're just running a traffic ad to your product page, that is not the right objective for that. You should be running a conversion ad, right? So go back to your objective, make sure that your targeting is on point, that you're actually targeting the right person. So go back and look at your audience. What did I do? I just pressed my little mouse pad here. Evaluate the offer. Maybe the offer that you're making to people isn't good enough. Free estimates is not a good offer to most people because everybody's offering that. So it's not novel. It's not going to get it done. You need to come with something a little bit stronger, maybe. And also optimize your landing page. Maybe your site, have Lee take a look at it, right? Your site's not loading fast enough. The buttons are all out of whack. It doesn't even work. You're right. There could be all kinds of problems. There could be all kinds of reasons that when people get to your landing page, it's not converting. Examine that, get some ideas on how you can improve your landing page. So these are just a few different things, and we could go into this for, I don't know, a whole day. Which we may do at some point. If anybody's running Facebook ads and you want to let us take a look at them, we'll look at them live and see if we can't help you get a little bit more out of them. But otherwise, that's all we got. So apologize for the technical difficulties, but
Yeah, thank
I
you
think
all.
we got through it okay. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this and learned something. And if you have more questions, please feel free to fire away.
Yeah, if there's any other questions, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself and jump in here.
Yeah. We really could do a whole module on just addressing common issues with ads, and usually what we see is, or what we hear from business owners is, it's just not working, and usually it's just, what isn't working? What do you mean? Well, I've only gotten one customer. Well, what's your average customer lifetime value? How much have you spent? Maybe it is working. You spent $40 and you typically make $500 on each customer, and you've got a customer. That sounds like it's working. That sounds like we should spend more. But, obviously still continue to optimize what we're doing. So it's just really important to keep all those metrics in mind. Any questions?
I don't see any questions coming in.
Okay.
So you must have covered it so well. Everyone is a master.
Or everybody's asleep.
Either way, we're in good shape. But I do want, on behalf of the chamber, I want to thank Caitlin and Brad for their time today and helping us put this series together and sharing all those great tools with us. I know they're a great resource, so reach out. Brad's in one of our Connect and Collaborate groups, so if you're interested in joining that, he's a good resource for that as well. So there's lots of good stuff going on. They're there as a resource if you need it. We're about to wrap up here. I'm just going to give one final plug. I'm sure you've seen it, like literally plastered everywhere. But if you haven't taken a chance, go vote today. It is an amazing opportunity. I was just seeing something on Facebook. It's like you're in and out in 15 minutes most places. So it's really not a big deal. Everyone's masked up and sanitized and, not reusing pens, all that good stuff. So go vote, and it's an important day to do that, regardless.
Kate and I were at the town hall yesterday for an hour and a half, two hours waiting to vote. I wish I had just waited till today.
Me too.
Everybody was saying the polls would be crazy.
Yeah, I was prepared for a long wait today, but I was in and out under 10.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Get out there. No sticker, though.
I know. I didn't get a sticker either.
I got my sticker. It's on my notebook over here. Yep.
They weren't giving them out.
Whatever
I think Sununu got a sticker.
So I will say, I think voter turnout is going to be huge. I live in the town of Durham. I thought if I went to vote at 7 a.m. when they opened, there'd be no college students there. I'd be in and out. They were like walking. It was like a parade from UNH down to the high school to vote. It was super cool to see. So I think voter turnout will be huge today. But enough of that. Let's not go down the rabbit hole of politics. But
good things. Those college kids out there.
Yeah, have a great day, and we'll see you hopefully next week for the third Mammoth.
Yes.
Series.
Everybody join us next week. We'll be talking about how to dominate Google.
Awesome. I always want to dominate Google. All right, take care, everybody. Have a good day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.